Bound 15. The outbound Edens has delays from Gulf Road to Winnetka Road. Crash now on the right shoulder. 19 minutes, Montrose to Lake Cook, inbound 15. Kennedy, 33 minutes, O'Hare to downtown, no savings in the express. The Eisenhower, 43 minutes from 390 to downtown. Stevenson, 36 minutes, 355 to Lakeshore Drive. The Rhine is 23 minutes from 95th to downtown. I-57, 11 minutes, I-80 to the merge Bishopport 18, with delays starting around 115th Street. Northbound Lakeshore Drive is heavy from Stevenson to Jackson. I'm Jim Telemonte.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. AM 560 Weather Center forecast. Cloudy and cooler. Couple of showers, maybe a thunderstorm today. High 58. Currently 47. Your next news update is at 8. And Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
From the Matrix Home Solutions studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560, The Answer, online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, on TuneIn, iHeart, and radio.com. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. So President Biden to give his not State of the Union address tonight, in which he is going to call for universal preschool program for 3 to 4-year-olds, 2 years of tuition-free community college for all Americans, including Dreamers, and more money for child care and boost federal funding to child care providers, national paid leave program for those needing time to care for a child, and so on and so forth. $1.8 trillion worth. I mean, I remember when $1.8 trillion was a lot of money. Now it seems positively pedestrian.
Monopoly money.
But maybe on the tax side, it's a little bit more offensive to the likes of one Steve Moore, Wall Street Journal columnist, economist, and Trumponomics author. Steve, thanks for joining us.
Good morning, guys. And by the way, I tend to agree with Joe Biden on all this money for, the universal child care and universal pre-K. The problem in America is we've got to get these kids out of the hands of these unprofessional parents, right? And we got to get the kids, in front of the government,
right?
The experts,
because they've done such a great job with our 6 to 18-year-olds. The problem is, we're not getting a hold of them quickly enough. So if we can get a hold of these kids and out of the, parents are just unprofessional. So we give them, the 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds to the government, and everything will turn out just fine.
Well, I mean, Steve, if you wait until they're 5 and 6, they may have already decided that they're a boy or a girl, and that's a decision for the school to make in conjunction with the child.
No, I mean, it really is. This is the way liberals think. I mean, they really believe that, somehow, the problem is that the parents just aren't doing a good enough job, and therefore, we've got to get these professional bureaucrats to do it. And again, folks, these are the people who are educating our 6 to 18-year-olds. And if you like the job they're doing, in the public schools with the 16 to 18-year-olds, you're going to love universal. And by the way, all of these people, the child care people, the pre-kindergarten people, they'll all be union. They'll all be part of the teachers' unions. And
in addition to the free 2 years of free community college. Number one. One of the attractions of community college is you can, go get your gen eds knocked out at a relatively low tuition cost. You can also, it's work. It's open enrollment. So, I mean, community college is really a barrier to entry to post-secondary education? I don't think so. It's actually a nice intermediate step for a lot of people, and as well as people that are older coming back to get schooling or training or whatever. So, I mean, community college isn't where the tuition inflation problem is. It's in the colleges and universities in this country. It's interesting that Joe Biden didn't want to go there.
Well, a couple of points about this. First of all, I'm a big fan of community colleges and technical schools. The idea that every 18 and 19-year-old, he has to go to, some kind of liberal arts school where they're not being taught much anyway, is a waste of money, I think. Actually, I think the biggest financial scam in America is these, elite colleges and universities. But I also, my own personal experience, having gone to the University of Illinois, is that I found, and I don't know if this has changed, but there were a lot of kids who were working while they were in school. And the kids who were actually paying their own tuition by working, they were much better students. They took college much more seriously. They were actually learning things because they were paying for it stuff. And my point is, this idea that everything has to be given away for free, I hate that ethic. I mean, look, are we saying 19 and 20 and 21 and 22-year-olds can't possibly work, while they're going to school? Why do they have to be full-time students? We should have kids working and going to school at the same time. And this idea, look, half of the kids at University of Illinois were just, hanging out at the fraternities and sororities and partying and stuff like that. And we're paying, all this money for those kids.
Well, I mean, I'm in complete agreement. I wanted to get to, on the tax side, what is being bandied about, and maybe what will be at least referenced generally tonight, and specifically on the capital gains tax, because Scott Sumner over from the Mercatus Center, George Mason, had a good write-up at his blog on this, just how terrible the news coverage is, how ignorant the press corps is, even though this is hardly a new topic. This gets batted around every administration in one direction or the other. And people reporting on this, including for like Bloomberg, have no idea what they're talking about when it comes to capital gains. For example, this from Bloomberg. A group of economists recently argued in the Chicago Booth Review that the prevailing wisdom among scorekeepers that the revenue maximizing rate is about 30%, may be misplaced and could allow for an even higher rate. A pair of Princeton economists published research in December showing hikes may raise substantially more tax revenue than scorekeepers currently believe, and the revenue maximizing rate for capital gains, long-term capital gains, may be about 40%, almost exactly where Biden's proposal falls. How convenient. They've also made the case that cuts in capital gains rates have a negligible impact on investment decisions and economic growth. That's in Bloomberg. And Sumner's one-sentence response to this, well, wait a second. If capital gains taxes have no impact on behavior, then why isn't the revenue maximizing rate 100%? It's just awful coverage.
Yeah, and look, it's very simple, folks. I mean, even the term capital gains tax is kind of, hard for people to understand. A capital gains tax is tax on a share of stock, right? And so when you sell your stock and you have a gain on the stock, you pay a tax on it. By the way, not just a stock, but a business. So let me give you a good example, I think, a real-life example of why the capital gains tax is so negative for investment and growth. And that is, my son just recently has lived in Silicon Valley for the last 5 or 6 years. He recently started a business, a technology company, which and when someone starts a small business like that, especially in the technology industry, you need, several $1 million of capital to get the business off the ground. And what does someone who's 28, 29, 30 years old do to get money to start a business? Well, typically what happens is the first round of capital investing, it comes from the round is called friends and family. So I wrote a pretty big check to my son, because I believe in him. I think he's going to make it. But look, 2 out of 3 small businesses fail, right? So there's a good chance I'm going to lose everything that I gave him for this, invested in it. But I think, I'm hoping and I have confidence in him. But my point is, if you tell, so there's a good chance I may lose everything I put in, but I'm putting the money in because I think, hey, if this thing works out, I could really make a lot of money on this. But now the government's going to say, by the way, Steve Moore, if that business does, take off, the government's going to take half of the profits away from you. Well, guess what? I mean, this is just human nature. My decision to invest in a business like that is going to be reduced, right? I mean, if the government's going to take all the winnings away from me, then why would I invest in the company in the first place? So my point is, I think we're missing an important argument here. If we want great new small businesses started in this country, that you've got to have a tax that is lenient and low on the people who actually invest in those businesses. I'm not talking about the Googles and the Apples and so on. I mean, they actually started with friend and family rounds too, and look, now they employ millions of people. So this is anti-business. And by the way, I believe, and I've looked at the evidence over the last 40, 50 years, going back to the 1970s. I believe the revenue maximizing rate for capital gains is closer to about 20%, not 28%. But the Joint Tax Committee, by the way, people don't know what that committee is, but they're the people who do the official scoring of how much money will be raised or lost from a tax change. And they are the farthest thing from supply-siders. And even the Joint Tax Committee says the revenue maximizing rate is 28%. And Biden wants to take to 43%, which means, folks, we will lose money. We will lose money. We'll lose jobs. We'll lose investment. To lose to go to 43%. And one final point, you really got my blood boiling here. The capital gains tax is a double tax because there's also a corporate tax. That, in other words, we pay a 21% corporate rate before those profits are ever distributed to the person who owns the stock. So you hit it at the corporate level, and then you tax the individual investor. It's really bad policy. It's going to hurt the country a lot.
Well, I mean, someone's going to stop them, right? I mean, 43% for a capital gains tax? That's insane.
Yeah, they're not going to do that. Amy, it's a great point. So I think Biden will try to get that rate up to 28%. And I think what they're trying to do is just come out with an outrageously crazy number of 43%, which virtually any sane person, except, I guess, these two Princeton economists you're talking about, everyone agrees that this is crazy. And I think what they're doing is saying, well, we'll just start with 43% and then we'll take 28%. But I think we should have, here's my policy, a 15% corporate tax that everybody pays, get rid of all the loopholes, and a 15% capital gains tax. If you want to maximize jobs in this country and maximize American competitiveness, let's go to 15% on capital gains, 15% on corporations, and one other point, Dan and Amy. Guess what country would have the highest capital gains tax in the world if Biden has his way?
United States.
Yep. That's putting America last, not putting America first.
It's those two Princeton economists and about 48 of the 50 Democrat socialist senators that believe that 43% is reasonable. So I hope you're right, but I would be cautiously optimistic. I wanted to end on a policy happy note here, celebrate the examples of success. And one of the examples of success is the DeSantis administration in Florida. Florida announcing that the scholarship program it has, the school scholarship program it has, is expanding again. It's increasing the eligible household income cap from 300% to 375% of poverty level, which gets to a family of four of about $100,000, although it prioritizes households that are much below that household income level. And so this, and they also escalated the enrollment cap by 1% of public school enrollment annually, allowing 28,000 new students to enroll each year. I mean, there's somebody who, and it obviously preceded DeSantis, goes all the way back to Jeb Bush, but for the last 20 years, Florida has methodically been pursuing school choice to the benefit of its families, disproportionately minority families in Florida, and still a state without an income tax, one of the lowest tax states in the country.
I mean, DeSantis is a star. I know I say this every week. I was in Florida again this past weekend. I mean, if you want to see freedom, you have to go to Florida, right? And, everything is totally back to normal there. The stores are open, the restaurants are open, the schools are open, everything's open. And, DeSantis has been the best governor in America. Very, there might be, if he's not the best, he's in the top three. And what a contrast. Your idiot governor in Illinois. I mean, Pritzker is probably one of the worst governors. And it pains me to say this because I do love the state of Illinois. I love Chicago. But my goodness, why is it that Illinois cannot be fully opened up right now? We've got 80% of our seniors are now vaccinated. Virtually everywhere. I don't know if this is true in Illinois, but where I live, it's true. If you want a vaccination, you can now walk in and get it. You don't have to have an appointment.
Same with us.
My wife got her shot yesterday, 15 minutes. So, look, folks, we don't need to lock down anything anymore. Everything should be opened up. How about Biden? He has this thing about, you don't have to wear a mask outside. Then he wears a mask while he's outside.
Well, that was political theater. He wore it out, and then it was the moment where he took it off and, the clouds parted, and then he walked back in without his mask on. See the significance there? Yes.
Well, we should never have had outdoor masks in the first place. But I want to mention one quick thing since I know we're running out of time. Have you seen? I've got a big story now that we're just releasing in our hotline today. There is something very, very, very fishy about the new Census Bureau numbers about population changes. They revised upward the Biden census revised upward the population of New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Illinois, California, virtually all the blue states had upward revisions of the massive, by the way. I think it was a couple 100,000 upward revision in Illinois, 850,000 upward revision in New York, 850,000 people. All of a sudden, we didn't know they were there, and they're there. And meanwhile, virtually all of the red states like Florida, Texas, Arizona, North Carolina, South Carolina had downward revisions. My question for you is, do you think that's a coincidence?
I think the same people that were in charge of the election in November were apparently in charge of the census.
No, I mean, I shouldn't be laughing. I mean, I think there's something really suspicious here, and now they're politicizing the census. I mean, look, I don't have the evidence, but, it is certainly circumstantial. When you look at those states that gain population, massive increases in the blue states. And by the way, how did New York get 850,000 more people? Everybody's left New York during the pandemic.
Yeah,
right.
That's suspicious.
Right. No, that's a good story to follow too, because among other reasons, if Illinois could lose one more congressional seat, then we only be 16 to go until we have zero impact on the Electoral College, which is where I want us to get to.
Exactly. Well, look into that, guys, because it's a big story. I think it's going to get a lot of attention. They politicize the voting. They want to get rid of the filibuster. They want to crack the Supreme Court. And now, the Census Bureau. When does this madness end?
All right. Steve Moore, Wall Street Journal columnist, economist, Trumponomics author. Thanks, Steve.
Take care.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Hear about the big stories of the day, then talk about them right here on Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Folks, when shopping for a home mortgage, how much is great service, low closing costs, and competitive interest rates worth to you? At Townstone Financial, it's priceless. Hi, Barry Sterner, founder of Townstone Financial. Let's hear about the Townstone experience from one of our customers.
My name is Demi, and I did my first home purchase